This is the Creative Creatures podcast, brought to you by the Spangled Drongo Brewery and Livco Caps, which is my favourite beer and my favourite caps, so that works pretty well for me. Today I've got the big dog from AFL cricketing newsbreaker, Channel 9 and SEN, Tom Morris. How are you, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kier. It's good to be here with a beer at 10 a.m. on a Thursday. So
Yeah, well.
No, mate, a pleasure to be here.
He wouldn't have one. I couldn't convince him to have one, but...
I know, maybe if it was a Saturday, it'd be a chance. Maybe if I was 22 again, but I can't do it today, I'm working. But I'll watch you drink it, that's fine.
Next time. So we already quickly discussed you've been stuck to your phone, so maybe we might have some sort of breaking stories that come through. I said, if that's the case, feel free to just go nuts.
Yeah, keep it rolling. Yeah, we'll see what happens. So my phone's here. If I'm looking at it, it's not because I'm being rude, it's because something might happen, but... hopefully nothing does in the next 50 or so minutes.
Love it. Look, I thought before we get too far into it, a bugbear of mine, I need to take this opportunity to ask you the score review system in the AFL. Like, oh my God, what are we doing? Like other codes, they have, you could see a mosquito sweat land on one of these cricket balls or something like that. Yet the AFL is just an absolute joke. The frame rate. I feel like they've just gone in. It's like a security system from like a fish and chip shop from 1996 or something.
Oh, God. I mean, you started on something that I'm passionate about as well. It's so amateur hour, isn't it? And the fact that the score review system isn't the same at every ground. Like this weekend, Port Adelaide are playing against the Western Bulldogs in Ballarat. And that's not as good as what it would be at the MCG or Marvel Stadium or Adelaide Oval. It's just they're dipping their toe into it. And there's actually examples around the world of the score review system really working. I mean, I think tennis is probably the best example. Obviously easier in tennis. But I think even the goal line technology in soccer works really well. But footy there's a lot to be desired. So I'm with you completely on that one.
Is it on the cards? I mean, I've got a couple of old GoPro 2s from 2010. It's like gathering dust in my drawers. I will donate them. We can tape it to the top of the goalposts. How hard can it be? Is it a cost thing? Like,
it's a cost thing. And who pays for it? And cricket has a similar issue. Should it be the broadcasters who pay for these elements, or should it be the governing body? And the governing body says, no, this is a broadcast thing because, it makes the game more presentable to the viewers. But I would argue it should be paid by the AFL and Cricket Australia in cricket's terms because it's part of the game. It determines whether batters get out or not. It determines whether a goal is a goal or a point. So, I mean, you've hit a nerve early, and I'm with you completely.
God, I cannot fathom how it could be this hard and that expensive. But anyway,
yeah, it is expensive, and they've taken a lot of time to get it to the point where it is now. And I actually think it works better than what it did 5 years ago. Okay. But it's nowhere near what it should be.
All right, and any change coming?
Well, I think they're going to try to evolve it. I mean, they're all trying to not spend money. So when you've got an overall philosophy is let's not spend too much money, it's going to be hard to improve it pretty quickly.
All right. Well, as you can tell, I'm an AFL fan. I'm a long-suffering North Melbourne fan.
Congratulations.
I don't know anything about cricket, so I'm going to just stay off that topic.
Fine.
Like, surely, as a reporter, you would prefer to be telling stories about the AFL than cricket, or?
Well, footy's my main job. So footy takes up my time about 9 months of the year.
Okay.
And cricket's quite niche in Melbourne and Australia. Probably about 2 months of the year, if that, across Christmas. I love cricket, but my main gig is footy.
Yeah, okay. Because I'm not even, I'll get hate for this, no doubt, that I don't get it. And I asked my friend, I was like, so do you actually really like the sport? He's like, yeah, I love the ritual, like Boxing Day match, summertime, on the couch, fall asleep to it. And I'm like, wait, you fall asleep to it? I'm like, so you love the idea of it, like not actually watching the game?
The thing with cricket is, it's actually nonsensical. Like, it doesn't make sense. So it's very hard to explain in a pragmatic or a logical way why I love cricket, but I just do. So people like you that don't love cricket just need to accept that we love cricket, and that's it. Okay. Like, you can't really explain it. In saying that, I also love footy, and I respect you for going for North Melbourne and also saying that out loud because it's been a tough few years for you guys.
It's been more than tough. Yeah. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about it because there's some breaking stories at the moment with my team, and actually it seems to be never ending at the moment. We went from being irrelevant to being relevant in a bad way. But
I couldn't have said it better myself.
It's crazy. But like, so with you, your career, I feel like there was like Hutchie, the Channel 9 newsbreaker, then there was Damien Barrett. You seem to have sort of filled those shoes. So growing up, if you wanted to be an AFL newsbreaker, I feel like you've kind of like reached the king of the hill. Like,
I mean, but the thing is, I actually didn't want to be. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was growing up. I just knew that I wasn't very good at maths or science or languages.
Touche, same.
Yeah, so like I knew I wanted to do something broadly in humanities, and I studied sports journalism at La Trobe, but there was no indication that I wanted to be the chief football reporter at Channel 9 or commentate cricket on SEN.
Okay.
My first job was at St Kilda Footy Club. So I worked there for 3 years.
Had you done study on journalism or something?
Well, I did that course.
Okay.
2011, 12, 13, I did that course. And about halfway through 2012, I got some work at St Kilda Footy Club, unpaid work, just writing an article a week for them.
Through a contact or did
through
you?
a contact.
Yeah, okay.
Through a contact, yeah. I'd been doing some unpaid work at the Northern Footy League, driving out to Montmorency or Heidelberg or West Preston every Saturday, writing a match report. And I really enjoyed that. But again, it was unpaid, so you can't do that forever. And then a contact said, "Oh, well, how would you like to step it up a bit and write an article a week for saints.com.au?"
Yeah, okay.
Oh, jeez. And I was so pumped with that. You know, like my articles were being published on St Kilda Footy Club's website. And as you would know with the writing, like it's the easiest stories you can write are ones with subheadings. Yeah. So the story was 5 talking points every game. So just pick it like Rewalt dominates or Montagna like whatever it was. And then I just did content at St Kilda for 3 years. 2013, I was part-time in my last year at university. Then 2014, 15, I was full-time.
Right.
And a bit of media management. Social media back then was Instagram, no Instagram stories, Facebook and Twitter. Now, obviously, it's grown to TikTok and stories and Snapchat and the whole lot. But back then, it was pretty stock standard. Wrote probably anywhere between sort of 5 to 8 articles a day, different sorts of articles, which gave me good grounding. Had some great people that I worked with that helped me learn the content space as it was then. Very different to what it is now, but still the fundamentals are the same. You know, even then, quick content was very much the go. And then at the end of 2015, I got approached to apply for a job at Fox Footy in their digital team.
Right.
So just write for their website. And I didn't know Fox Footy had a website. You know, so I think it was quite new at that point.
Yeah.
So I thought, let's do that. And really the first year or two there, I was, again, just writing content for foxfooty.com.au. You know, I wasn't really breaking any stories. And then just sort of evolved. I got lucky with a couple of stories that I broke. And then they said, we'll put you on TV one day. And I went, what? Like, I was 25 at this point. It's not like I was a young kid desperate to be a newsbreaker. So I just started doing that. And I think probably what attracted them about me was that I hadn't had like formal TV training. Right. I was quite authentic. Yeah. I spoke too quickly and I still do sometimes. Yeah, but I was able to and then they put me on the couch. And I remember sitting there and the first, Jared Healy, who was the host, Gary Lyon, Jonathan Brown and Paul Roos. And there I am. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing here? Massive imposter syndrome for like the whole year. And the second week I was on the couch, I got the Adelaide training camp story.
Right. So that's a big one.
That just kicked off. And from there, it was just like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this now. But it wasn't a big plan. It wasn't like I had this 5-year plan where I want to do this and this and this, or I did a cadetship at the Herald Sun or anything. I just enjoyed writing about footy, talking about footy, and it sort of evolved into what it is today.
Jeez.
So I got a bit lucky.
Bit of a whirlwind. Yeah, I've always thought it's a bit strange that they seem to be so different disciplines to be writing, you know, as a journalist, and then the on-screen stuff. Yeah. It reminds me of like in movies, there's a script writer and then completely different to that most of the time as an actor. They're very different disciplines, yet for some reason in journalism, they go hand in hand and one leads to the other.
Well, the bedrock is your writing. Yeah. So being able to write clearly, and Jake Nile, who I worked with a bit at Fox, who's now at The Age, he always said, clarity of thought comes after, clarity of expression comes after clarity of thought. Yeah. So in order to say what you want to say or write what you want to write, you have to be very clear in your mind what you think. And it took me a while to properly understand what it was to have like legitimate clarity in what I wanted to say. Yeah. Which really helped me. But you're right. Like I still love writing. Yeah. Okay. But TV is a rush. You know, the red light goes on and there's nowhere to hide. Like as soon as you're on. Yeah. And if you stuff something up, like hundreds of thousands of people see it. So
not like this where we can just cut it out.
That's right. But that rawness of it, I really like. Yeah. And I know that because if I do a pre-record, we call it a look live in TV. Okay. So if I do something during the day and they play it that night as if it's live, looks live. Yeah. I'll stuff it up a few times. But if I have to do something live,
the pressure,
I'm more likely to nail it because like you just have nowhere to hide. And I think a lot of journalists about that are like that as well. But I like the fact that I'm multidisciplined. Like I write, I can talk on TV, I can talk on radio. I think that's a skill to be able to do multidimensional. But the young journalists coming through now, they're far more multidimensional than me. They can do TikToks and social media and they can produce, they can do graphic design, and I don't have any of those skills. So That's pretty scary to see what they can do.
Okay. I have noticed that there seems to be on socials, there's all these graphs and polls and that kind of thing about who's the most annoying AFL commentator or journalist or newsbreaker.
Yeah.
So there's like flogometers, all this sort of stuff. What is it about that? Do you think the AFL audience has got like disenfranchised with these people? Maybe because they're hearing bad news about their team and they're like, oh my God, not again. Or is it that it attracts some people who are maybe like characters that are, I don't know.
I think it's both. It's a really good question. So I think it's partly there are people in the media, and I'm sure people think this about me, who are divisive and polarising people. And that's part of the skill set. We're going to talk about Kane Cornes a little bit later on. He doesn't care that he's polarising. You know, Craig Hutchison, when he was hosting Footy Classified, didn't care that he was polarising. Whereas... And there's journalists the same way. Caroline Wilson will write something even though she knows it's going to disenfranchise half her audience.
Especially North Melbourne fans.
So, and that's okay. There is room for that. You know, it's a contact business. It's a contact sport. There's room for that sort of butting of heads. Yeah. The other element which you mentioned, which I think is absolutely true as well, is that if you write or report a negative story about a club, there is space for those fans at that club to automatically think you hate that club. It's like, I actually don't hate any club. You know, if I report a negative story about North Melbourne or West Coast or Richmond, it doesn't mean I hate that or I'm biased against them. It doesn't mean I'm biased for Melbourne, who I support. It just means I'm doing my job. But people look at it, and understandably so, because they're emotionally invested. They look at it through a lens of their own life, which is, I love this club. It means everything to me. Why is this person trying to bring us down? Right. And there's so many examples of that. You know, I mentioned the Adelaide training camp story. Yeah. Crows fans thought I hated the club. I didn't hate the club at all, and I still don't. I'm a Melbourne supporter, but I get criticised by Melbourne fans for being a traitor because I've written negative stories about the D's, but I also get criticised by non-Melbourne fans for being biased towards Melbourne. Yeah. So you actually can't win sometimes. And I think the sooner you realise that, the more comfortable you can be with the job that you're doing.
Well, later on, I'm going to talk about just North Melbourne perspective, and I got to say, I've got a list of people that have seemed to be the North Melbourne fans think they've got it out against them.
Like a whiteboard.
Yeah.
What's that movie? Like a Happy Gilmore? No, something about the hit list.
I think it's Happy Gilmore. Whatever it
is. Billy Madison? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's sort of it. And you're not on there, so maybe you are doing something right of maybe not singling out teams or something like that, but I'm not too sure.
Like, you got to be balanced sometimes, and clearly you have relationships in the industry, which means that there's some clubs you get along with better than others. That's just human nature. Yeah. But I genuinely don't hate any footy club. Okay. And if I report negatively about a club, it's not because I'm vindictive against them. It's just because there's a negative story that's there to report.
All right, doing your job. You mentioned about the young journos that are coming through multidisciplined. I was thinking, as a young journo yourself, or any young journo coming through, it seems, look, I'm so far out of this space, I don't know, but it seems like a massive part of it is the contacts. Like you've got your phone there, you're checking, someone's going to be messaging you with sources and that kind of thing. So as someone that comes out of uni and doesn't have those contacts necessarily, it seems impossible. You've got some people that have been around for 20 years, know all these clubs. So do you go in and need to get yourself a mentor to give you contacts, to ask them, show me the ropes, that kind of thing? Or is it the opposite where you go in acting like the big dog and kind of I'm the new generation, the old guard, step out of the way?
I don't think you can go and act like a big dog. I mean, it takes a certain level of ego, clearly, to be on TV and to be front-facing. But if you have too big an ego and you think you're the big dog straight away, then you're going to be burnt as well. But if you're too submissive or too much in the background, then you're not going to get anywhere. So you really got to find that balance.
How could you compete though if you're fresh out of uni or whatever, and you haven't been in the AFL industry? You obviously wouldn't have met too many AFL players, too many people within these pockets.
I was the same as that. It just takes time. You know, it takes probably a good decade.
Yeah.
Depending on who you are and what contacts you have already, to really feel comfortable in that space. And that's hard. I mean, so you walk into a job, you've got zero contacts in the AFL industry. Yeah. The only thing you can do is start making some calls. Can I please have the media manager of Geelong's name? Or can I call up the media manager of Hawthorn? You get a coffee with them. Media manager of West Coast, and that person ends up being the CEO of Sydney, because people move around.
That makes sense. It's just crazy why they would give you that job in the first place unless you would think you would need to have all these contacts.
Not necessarily,
to be given
because
the job.
Not everyone who is a journalist breaks stories.
Right.
There's plenty of journalists who write really good, engaging content and good ideas, but they don't necessarily break stories in the industry. So
Yeah, so
I
once
started
you're
off.
established.
I started off just by writing content. You know, I remember my weekly role. Do you remember the show Open Mic with Mike Sheen? So my weekly role, one of them, was to watch the show on a Monday afternoon, write a preview article, and then the show would air that night.
Right.
So then I started talking to Mike Sheen a bit more because he was the one doing the show, or the producers, and
That makes sense.
so I didn't. The first story I broke was probably 2 years into being at Fox Footy, and that wasn't even a big one. I think it was Jamie Elliott had a sore back,
Yeah.
and he was out
Back
for
spasms or something.
he was out for
a
longer
few-
than what Collingwood had said, and then
Okay.
they finally admitted that he was out for a while, and you know that was 2 years in, so
Yeah.
it takes a while, and I go through times now where I think to myself, geez, I haven't broken a story for a bit. I'm sort of due. And then other days we've got 2 or 3 or 4 new things that you think she's having a good day. And every journalist is like that. I speak to Mitch Cleary, and he's like that. Some days you got nothing, and some days you got too much. So
Well, you can't really control it. Sometimes there's no stories to be broken, I'm sure. So, yeah.
literally there's no stories to be broken sometimes. And that's why I hate February.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Because January's proper preseason.
Yeah.
March is footy. February's just like this hybrid month of what are we doing? We've got some practice games. There's nothing really going on. So now it's May now. Like I love it now. Like we're in the routine. The footy world is bubbling. There's always stuff to talk about. So
That just reminds me, this wasn't in my notes, but surely you must hate the trade season or something like. You must love it, but also that.
I'm glad
trade,
it's done when it's done. But
Yeah, okay.
I quite like the trade period because,
Yeah,
again, there's
fair
always
enough.
something to talk about. And people are obsessed with player movement.
It's true.
Like people are enamored with it to the point of complete madness.
I know what it's like. I can't stand like the rate, but then I tune in and listen anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you hate it so much you listen. I know. It's that there are people that and there's lots of footy fans and the trade radio numbers, because I do trade radio. The trade radio numbers are off the charts.
Yeah, okay.
Are completely off the charts because people, you know, it's almost like a fantasy football generation. People love building their own teams and seeing what's next.
Yep.
And you can sell hope to anyone. North Melbourne fans, Richmond fans down the bottom, West Coast fans, what's next is always a question.
Yeah.
So having fans feel like they can say, well, if we give a future second round pick for him and bring him back in and give up
Just
a
hope.
future third round pick, you know, who knows what could take place. And I think that's a big part of the footy industry now, and the AFL loves it because it increases the conversation for another 2 or 3 weeks after the season.
Yeah, okay. We touched on Hutchie and Damo. So those guys who were sort of previously in your role and have like stepped away, do you think that they've or stepped aside or moved up? Is that because the role is so taxing that eventually, like, is it kind of a short lifespan? Because I don't know what your private life is like, but surely it must be hard to commit to plans and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Do you think why did they move out of those roles? And do you see the same for you?
Well, I think in Hutchie's case, he was done. Like he's spoken about that he was just burnt out.
Yeah.
And he was the chief football reporter at, I think, Channel 10, then Channel 7. Then he moved to Channel 9 to host Footy Classified and be on the Footy Show. And I think by sort of 07, 08, 09, he was done and started his own business.
Yeah.
I don't have a business bone in my body. So, I mean, if I was going to start my own business, I need someone to do it for me.
Yeah, okay.
I've got no idea what's going on in that space. And that's okay. But Damo is still the chief at AFL.com.
AFL, so he just moved to a different segment.
Yeah, and he's
sort of
still on
thing.
Channel 9, but he was never the 9 News
Right.
reporter.
Okay. Yeah, true.
And in fact, the role that I'm in now, no one was in that before. So I replaced no one. They sort of created a new role for me. Whereas, you know, at the host broadcaster, in this case Channel 7, you know, Mitch is in the role. Before him it was Tom Brown. Before him it was I can't remember. Maybe it was Hutchie before him. I can't remember. Oh no, it was Mark Stevens before him.
Okay.
So everyone has their own career path that's different. I don't look too far ahead. What I do know is that it can be taxing on your private life as well. Yeah. Like I got a wife and a baby.
Yeah.
And that can be difficult, but you know, it is rewarding. Because I don't have to be sitting at my desk at 9 a.m. in the morning like a lot of my mates do in their jobs. But then I don't get home till 7:30 at night, which isn't too late, but accumulatively over the week, it probably takes its toll. If something big is happening, you've got to be on.
Yeah.
And it's been the case in the past where I've been on holiday or I've had a day off and something big happens and you just got to switch on.
Okay.
That's just the job though. And I love the job.
Yep.
It's all encompassing.
Yep.
Like I watch anywhere between sort of, I'd say 6 to 8 games of footy on a weekend. I read both papers every morning. You know, I'm on my phone 8 to 9 hours a day. So it is all encompassing, but I'm not complaining about that because there was a while I didn't have a job at all. So it's important to have some perspective.
Well, I know what you mean. Like as an AFL fan, I've been sort of in an industry that's like sort of, I've done advertising, that kind of thing. And a couple of times, I used to work on Coles, which then paired with the AFL. And all of a sudden my enthusiasm for like doing the ads and incorporating that and that kind of thing like went up through the roof. So I've always sort of wondered one day I'd like to have some sort of incorporation with the AFL. So I can kind of get where you're coming from.
It's a big industry and there's lots going on and there's a lot of good people.
Yeah.
But you're right, you've got to live and breathe it. If you're going to be successful in AFL doing anything, in my view, you've got to live and breathe it.
So stories and leaks, I find it like crazy. How the hell does this work? So are you going to like functions and there's some sort of player that comes up to you and is like, "Oi, Tom, like, I don't know you, but if I message you some like leaks, you promise to keep it a secret." Like who are the people leaking it? Why are they leaking it? And how does it get to you?
Well, let me put it this way. We've developed a relationship over the past half an hour. Mm-hmm. If you hear something later today,
what do they get out of it?
It's juicy. You might go, "I actually quite like talking to Tom earlier today. I'm just going to message him on Instagram." Because like, why not? Like it doesn't, let's say it's about Hawthorn Footy Club. So it's nothing to do with you. And you come across a bit of information about a player's done a hamstring and you're sitting on this information going, 1 minute, I might as well just tell Tom.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the dream for me. Yeah. You just get a message saying, "Hey, this is happening." Mm-hmm. It's pretty rare. Most of the time, and it's probably the question that people ask me the most. You see a story coming and you have to get ahead of the story. So if I know that, I know that you've gone off with a leg injury, but we're unclear exactly what that leg injury is on a Sunday. I'll follow up on a Monday. Is it a calf? Is it a knee? Is it a hamstring? Is it a quad? And hopefully I'll break the story with the people that I know who tell me what that injury is.
Okay.
So the people that can see the stories ahead of time.
You start fishing around for
the best journalists.
Rattling the tree.
I also get messaged a lot of things that end up being completely wrong.
Yeah.
So you got to filter it out. But also, like I got messaged last July. This person I've never met before, never spoken to, messaged me on Twitter saying, "Tom, take it to the bank. Joe Danaher's going to retire." Yeah. Okay. And I went, you know what? I actually can't be bothered to chase that. Like,
and then
that's just so far fetched. He's playing good footy. Brisbane are on fire. He's got a year remaining on a loop. Why would he give up whatever he's on, at $900,000 a year? I thought, I'm just going to leave that, and it happened. Yeah. So I'm thinking to myself, God, imagine if I chased that. But if I chased every single thing someone told me,
it's crazy.
So the short answer to your question is, you get stories in all different ways. Sometimes it's just people being nice. Yeah. Other times it's you actually chasing something, and other times it's a combination of things. You might get told a bit of information that's half true, and then you go firm it up and you realize something else on top of that, or you might get told a bit of information and the person that you then call to confirm it goes, "Look, can you not go with that? But I'll give you something in 2 weeks."
Okay.
So that can happen as well.
What about if I'm thinking that maybe this doesn't happen, but I assume that there'd be people within clubs that are disenfranchised with something, some coach or something's not doing, or the board or something, so they may, in their benefit, to kind of use the reporting as a tool. Is there anything like
that happens?
And is that one a little more, because if you're the person who is kind of knowingly kind of betraying your club in a way, for maybe you believe it's the benefit of your club, this coach is like so bad, I need to reach out to a reporter. Like, does that happen? And how would that happen? Do they say, "Look, I'm about to tell you something, but you can't reveal that it's me"?
Yeah, you didn't hear from me, off the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens, but you got to be careful of those people because there might be a...
They're using you for...
Yeah, there might be a reason behind it that means what they're telling you is not exactly factual. Like if you have let's say hypothetically, a coach has a fight with another coach, a verbal argument. So I may get one of the coaches that calls me and goes, "This is what happened. He abused me. He said this, this, and this."
So that could potentially, someone would call you.
It's never happened, but it could happen. Okay. I'm just giving you an example of I get one side of the story. I'm thinking, wow, it's a big story. Senior coach has told an assistant coach X, Y, and Z. But I only get it from one perspective. So I've got to go then follow it up from the other perspective.
But do they ever cold call you, or is it always you sort of chasing it? Is there many times where someone from like Clubland has actually contacted you and said there's something here?
I wish there was more. But
a little bit.
The job would be easy if that was the case. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of journalists chasing the same sort of content. So that doesn't happen too much.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, with all the nonsense that's been going on at North Melbourne and recruiting staff leaving and stuff like that, I just assumed like they must be talking.
Well, every club leaks. This is the thing. You know, even the other night on Footy Classified, Eddie Maguire asked Paul Guerra, the new Melbourne CEO, are you going to find out who leaked his CEO appointment story to Caro? I'm thinking to myself, every club leaks to a point. Like no club is completely leakless. Like no coach leakless. Is that a word? No coach gets sacked with the club announcing it.
Yeah.
Like that very rarely happens.
But is it just them telling, like loose lips telling their wife or their kid or something
That's
like
it
that?
as well. That could be it. Yeah. So, you know, if a player gets dropped, they're disenfranchised. They might tell their best mate who I might have played cricket with in under 12s, or they might tell their manager who I'm happy to be talking to, or they might, you know, it can happen any way like that. So there's so many ways that stories can get out, and we're not talking about, you know, the nuclear codes here. We're talking about players doing hamstrings or footy stuff. So I don't, you know, like there's some stories that are serious and affect people's livelihoods.
Yep.
And I respect that. But
Mostly it's about the game.
mostly it's just footy stuff. And you know what? It actually makes the footy industry go round. And fans, as much as they might be like, oh, geez, that club's leaking, they still read the story.
Yeah.
So they're still part of it. They still click on the story.
Is there any unanimous, like, is there one club that's more leaky than others?
I wouldn't say so. I think often the clubs that leak the most are the ones that are down the bottom of the ladder and are struggling the most because they've got the most disenfranchised people.
Yeah, okay.
I think in general.
All right.
But I haven't done a ladder of the most leaky or the least leaky club. Maybe I should do that.
I just thought maybe it might be inside, you know, everyone talks about it and go, oh, not again, bloody, you know, Geelong. Yeah, here we go.
Well, I keep using the Adelaide training camp as an example. There was a lot of disenfranchised people there.
Yeah.
So as a result, there was a lot of leaks coming out of the club.
Yeah.
Like I remember one story, I didn't do it, but there was a story about the training camp. And then the next story, the next day was Tex Walker sent a WhatsApp text to the entire playing group saying stop leaking, and the story was that. So then you can imagine, you know, the text going, "Oh my God, I'm sending this message, and then that's getting out. We're cooked here." That's because people were so frustrated with what happened at the club.
Have you ever heard of any clubs purposefully putting out like a bit of a trap, like creating some false information to see?
I've heard of that, but I've never actually seen it happen. So I'm sure it has happened in the past.
That's wild.
Yeah, the whole industry is wild, and I imagine it's similar in NBA or NFL, obviously on larger scales over there.
What about any dumb rumors or something that just won't disappear that's sort of been like a bugbear of yours that people still believe? Like,
About me?
No, about the industry. Like there's one that I just keep hearing, and it's it was that Buddy Franklin had it tried to avoid drug testing.
Oh, yeah.
That is continuously told to me, and he was using other excuses to avoid that.
I've heard those rumors, but confirming that's actually impossible. It's
Right.
like, I mean, the rumor recently was that Jamara pulled a gun on Rory Lobb, which is just not true. It's just not true.
Completely.
What happens is, you know, someone writes a message, and it might have 20% truth to this message.
Yep.
Like I think Rory and Jamara, it's been reported, like did have, you know, like a falling out over maybe a couple of weeks or something.
Okay.
But as players do all the time. But the fact that the rumor was that he pulled a gun on Lobb is just ridiculous. And it's just wrong. Anyway, so what happens is this, you know, on your phone, you get sent this rumor, and non-journalists think, geez, must be true. Someone's written it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, you got to have a higher threshold than that. There's a lot.
Some proof.
There's a lot of misinformation that flies around, and I get sent these sort of, I call them WhatsApp rumors, all the time, and sometimes they actually nail it, but most of the time they're either entirely untrue or predominantly untrue. Okay. So yeah, no, those sort of rumors, they fly around all the time.
And is there anything that is true that you've maybe sworn yourself to secrecy that you wish that you could tell? There's a big story somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, and there's nothing, even if you blurt out the names, can you say someone's?
Nah, because a lot of the time, you keep a lot of things to yourself because, you know, if it involves a player's mental health,
right,
or you know, emotional well-being, or you've been told by someone in confidence.
Okay.
You got to. I'm not going to break that trust.
Yeah.
So if someone says, "I'm going to tell you something, but you can't report it,"
that's it.
Then you can't do it. That's it. No matter how big the story is. So, and that's happened. I've got one in my mind right now.
Yeah.
But I cannot do anything about it. and that's just
Just the way it is.
that's just the way it is, and I'll stick to that.
Yeah,
because
well, good.
that person I've developed trust with, so it's fine.
All right.
Even though it frustrates me sometimes.
it must kill you inside.
Yeah.
Being live on TV, have you been involved with any big fumbles or witnessed anything like just
for sure.
someone's dropped the ball?
I fumbled myself a lot of the time. I mean,
any notable ones or that?
nothing, no big ones that. But you know, like I was at Fox when Jared Healy. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
When Jared Healy said the Gold Coast cunts.
Oh yeah, I just love it
on TV, and you just seen Hutto, I think it was Hutto and maybe Spud Frawley with him. They went, "What?" So I was working at Fox at the time, and I couldn't believe. Did I just hear that? So that's. That I remember that can happen all the time, but also like this is live TV. So, you know, if I'm in the industry long enough, at some stage I'll say something that I didn't mean to say, and I'm like, oh Jesus.
I feel like Hutto's reaction was so fun. I love Hutto, by the way. I just wish that he was just the number one commentator, give him what he needs. He's not. He doesn't seem to be the number one on Friday. It's like BT to me is like always.
Yeah, but he's on Fox, so it's a bit different, isn't it? I mean, Hutto does Friday nights on Fox with Jared Waitley, and he starts the game every week. So he trumps Jared in footy commentary.
Right.
And then he does normally the big Saturday game as well, and he does a radio on Sunday.
On Fox, yeah, okay.
He's a gun, though. He's a gun.
I am, because North Melbourne is only on Fox.
Not tonight, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I can actually connect to Channel 7. Swear to God, I do not know if I can because I have never tried.
Well, I'm a Channel 9 guy, so that's fine.
There seems to be like a bit of a competition, tension, something, Channel 7, Channel 9, funny you mention it.
Yeah.
Is there any like legitimate, real, like, are they a bit pissed off at Channel 9 that the ideas, the concepts seem to be being used elsewhere? Or is it just a bit of fun and games?
Well, I thought, because I came from Fox, and Fox is on an island in itself.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other pay TV channel we can watch footy.
Yeah.
So I came to Channel 9, eyes wide open.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe how big a rivalry Channel 9 and Channel 7 is.
Yeah.
You know, if Channel 7 gets a big story and 9 doesn't have it, we're thinking, oh, God. And I imagine the other way around is true. If 9 gets a big story and 7 doesn't have it. But it swings and roundabouts. Like, Mitch Cleary's going to have some good stories that I'm not going to have. Hopefully, I'm going to get some good stories that he's not going to get. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, but what about the footy classified type shows that are popping up on Channel 7 that seem to be like the exact... In fact, it's got all the same panel.
Well, it does. I think that's why it's so similar, though, because it's got 3 of the 4 same people.
But didn't some of these shows just pop up since they got the people?
Yeah.
They only have just created these shows for those people.
They have.
And it's not people at Channel 9. I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake. Like,
well, maybe they are, but also, like... It doesn't bother me. I mean, if you take Hutchie, Caro, and Kane and put them on another channel, of course the show is going to be fairly similar, and that's what Agenda Setters is. And then Channel 9's got to back itself that they can revamp Classified in a way that is good as well. I mean, they moved Wednesday to Tuesday. I'm on Tuesdays now. Yep. I'm on some Mondays. You know, like I did First Crack on Fox Footy, and I now do Footy Furnace on Sunday nights on Channel 9. So Footy Furnace, by virtue of the fact that I am there, is obviously going to be somewhat similar to First Crack because I've done that in the past as well. I can only have so many ideas. So maybe some people at 9 would be like, oh, what are they doing? But I don't lose any sleep over it.
All right. So with the journalism side, I feel like there's a bit of creep going on, just that I've noticed. A lot of them are sort of, I believe this and I believe that. And I just wonder, do you believe... knowing your counterparts and stuff, do you ever suspect that maybe there's a little bit of guessing going on every now and again? Because sometimes I just I'm like, really?
Do you actually believe that?
I'm sure most of the time there's like some solid source there, but just,
Well, if I report something on the news, I would like to think that every single time I know it for sure.
Sometimes it's like, I believe.
Oh, I understand.
Maybe Caroline Wilson seems to be a culprit of this, like, and I'm not saying that her in particular, but just using that language to me, like, I believe that there's a problem going on at, like, whatever, some club. And I'm like, wait, is that a fact?
Yeah, so the language impacts you. Yeah, sometimes there is opinion that masquerades as news, and that can happen fairly regularly. Like, that if I say, I think this is going to happen, well, what do I mean by that? Do I know it's going to happen?
Yeah.
So I always try to be really specific with my language as much as I can. I say I understand rather than I believe, because to me, if I say I understand, that is more firm.
I like that.
But yeah, it's a really grey area, because you could argue, if I said to you, I think player X has done a hamstring.
You might have just made that up out of
that could be an opinion.
Yeah.
I think, oh no, geez, I got that wrong. It's like, you got to be firm. And that's really difficult. That's, the hardest thing about journalism is sorting out fact from fiction. And if you have a story that has 10 elements and you get 9 elements correct and 1 wrong, then the story is wrong. Yeah. So you have to nail everything. And often you walk the story back. So
to be triple.
Just to be 100% sure. So, like, for example, when's this podcast going out? In the next week?
Hopefully, yes. I'll do some snippets.
I firmly believe, it's my understanding that Philippou for St Kilda won't play on Friday night against Fremantle because he has a corky. Okay.
Right.
Now, this might look silly if he ends up playing, but my understanding of the situation is his corky's so bad that he won't be able to get up and play.
Right.
But the St Kilda Football Club is telling me, look, at the moment, we're planning that we're going to name him. So I'm like, if I say categorically that he's not playing and he plays, then I look like an idiot. So I'm better off, which I did yesterday. I'm better off saying he's in significant doubt. Okay. Which is what I said.
Yeah.
Whereas I actually think he's not going to play. But I can't be sure, because who knows what can happen. He might have a remarkable recovery and it looks silly. So things can change as well. So that sort of language is really important. That's a real-life example, which might make me look silly. It might make me look accurate of an example of a story where I'm like, how far do you push it, you know?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I get that. And it must be hard, because if you've got something that is significant, you could if you went with it, you could be breaking way more news cycle stories and everything like that. But you got to.
Well, I did a story a couple of years ago about Damien Hardwick quitting Richmond.
Yeah.
And I was 99.9% sure that he wouldn't coach that weekend.
Yeah.
That he was done. He wouldn't have a farewell game.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, if I say he's not coaching this weekend and he changes his mind, then it looks silly. So I wrote I said he's done coaching. It's my understanding that he's highly unlikely to coach a farewell game this weekend. That leaves me an out. That's fine. Yep. And in the end, I was right. He didn't coach that weekend. But people change their minds. Yeah. And you can make you look silly. So you have to be really careful.
What about people who are out and about, they see a player or something doing something crazy and they take a photo or video of it? Is that sort of fair game for you guys to sort of run it? I mean, I suppose the player's breaking the rules anyway. Usually that's the case.
So if a player's doing drugs and someone videos them when they're out, that video is going to get out. Yeah. So
you may as well.
Well, it's not going to be me. It's going to be someone else. Like, I don't go looking for that. Yeah. I'm never going to pay for that sort of content, even though people say, oh.
Well, that was my next question. I was going to say.
No, I've never paid for anything. And people ask for money. I just say no. Like, that's not happening. In fact, we've offered to pay for one thing. Which I'm happy to talk about. Yeah. Michael Voss last year chased down someone outside a cafe. There was a car crash. Do you remember that story in Malvern? And Voss filmed the whole thing as he was doing it. Can you imagine that vision? Anyway, so we offered to pay a charity of Voss's choice
to get the vision.
Yeah, like a low 4-figure sum to get the vision. And he thought about it. He thought, no, I'm not going to do that. So that's okay. But I've been, often people will say, give me $1,000 and I'll tell you some information. I'm like, I don't know what you've got. And also, I'm not going to get sucked into that. If you want to tell me, great. If not, I'll just leave it. So,
and is that you? What if they contacted the network or something like that, or someone said, is there other decision makers that might pay the money or something like that to go with it?
Well, they'll probably come to me and I'd say,
go with you.
I'm not going to pay for this. Checkbook journalism has a place, but in my view, it's not my place. Yep. That's for other. That's for 60-minute current affair. They pay. $20,000 to get a great guest on. Okay. So that's not my go.
And a similar thing happened to you once. You were let go of Fox Footy for like a league thing. What was the go there? Was there someone out to get you, or do you know who it was?
No one was out to get me. How long do we have? We got some time. No, I mean the person that leaked it out thought it was funny, so it wasn't malicious. But also, I don't blame that person, because I'm the one who did the wrong thing in the first place. So that was hugely embarrassing for people around me, my family. Like, there's a lot of collateral damage.
Right.
But no, there was nothing malicious in that got it out. I know how it got out, and I don't spend any time thinking how it got out. I spend a lot of time thinking why I was like that in the first place. Yeah, okay. You got to look inwardly sometimes. Yeah. Look at yourself, and I've spoken about that a lot. It's like, God, like your life goes through, lots of dips, and that was pretty grim. Yeah, and a big learning experience. Yeah.
All right, so North Melbourne, Kane Cornes. The timing of this podcast is bizarre.
It's perfect.
just yesterday, North Melbourne comes out and says they're blacklisting Kane Cornes
Yep.
because of what they perceive as bullying type behaviour.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to fly the flag here for North Melbourne. Yep. I personally think that you should have most of the time when players get upset about reporting, I'm batting for the reporter, saying like, you got to have a tough skin. To me, I think the line might have been crossed when you start creating logos of a player's perceived flaws, which a young player like Sheasel.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, can't see Kane Cornes sitting behind Photoshop creating a logo. So
logo was
it said Sheezy Ball and it came out looked like Sheasels or something like that. So to me, I think that Kane Cornes is more than welcome to have an opinion that he gets easy ball. But when you have a specialized custom logo
I haven't seen the logo, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
But he created the slogan, didn't he? Like he said on air,
Sheezy Ball. I think that, the slogan's sort of bad. Once it's paired with the whole logo in this segment and it was like a whole kind of like a lock-up, I'm not so sure that that's fair game. So I'm just wondering, has he got something out for North Melbourne? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I haven't spoken to Kane about North Melbourne. I have worked with Kane a fair bit. And I want to make it very clear. I don't agree with Kane's opinion on Harry Sheasel. I think Harry Sheasel's a star.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a superstar. And I think the role he plays is actually very important for North.
Absolutely.
His outside role is actually important. You need outside players that do get easy ball. You could argue that Gary Ablett Jr. was a stat padder. Little 1-2s. You could actually argue that. So I don't agree with Kane's opinion. But I also think that oh my God, it's a footy opinion. What are we doing? In what world is saying that a player, you don't rate the way a player's playing, bullying or targeted? So he's a young player. Yep. Once you're playing AFL, you're playing AFL. How old do you want to be before you can cop criticism? Does it have to be 23? Does it have to be 26? He's a good young player, Harry Sheasel, and he said on SEN yesterday, I'm not sure how much it affects him. So my view on the situation is, I'll give you some context actually. So last year, round 1 or opening round, whatever it was, first round of the season, Hawthorn got belted by whoever they played, and Hawthorn were under the pump.
Yeah.
Footy Classified that night was Kane going hard at Hawthorn, Damien Barrett saying they essentially were tanking, etc., etc. Hawthorn's response to this was to go, you know what? We're going to run towards the fire. We're going to give Kane Sam Mitchell once every 2 weeks on SEN. We're going to put Sam Mitchell on Footy Classified. We're going to bring Kane along for the ride. And it's worked a treat. It helped that Hawthorn became better.
That's true.
But it's actually worked a treat. Now Kane can't get enough of Hawthorn. North Melbourne has run the other way. I'm thinking to myself, North, bring Kane along for the ride. He's actually open to these discussions. It doesn't help that North Melbourne's been so poor for so long. And I like people at North Melbourne.
Yep.
But the club has been so unsuccessful for such a long period of time. In what world should they be thinking to themselves what any commentator says about any of their players, in my view? So it's a great story. It's great fodder. But I just think North Melbourne needs to look inwardly before they start looking outwardly.
Well, I agree with most of that. Like I said, it's probably just the addition of the customized logo.
I need to see the logo.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the logo.
I'll have a look in a sec. Yeah. So I guess to me, it's almost like the network thing. But I was wondering, is this going to worry? The fact they've blacklisted Kane Cornes and he's not doing an interview, is that actually better for the network?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
100%. This would piss Fox Footy off.
Yeah.
Because Fox Footy will know that people are going to watch Channel 7 now, hearing what Kane has to say about North Melbourne tonight. It's good for Channel 7. It's good for Kane.
That's what I was...
And, all this broadcast money goes into the game. Channel 7's paying a hell of a lot to broadcast it. They want as many eyeballs as possible. And if North are going to blow it up like this, they'll say thanks very much. So I understand the view of North Melbourne people that it's good to put your flag in the ground and protect your people. I get that completely.
Yep.
I just think that should be secondary to actually looking inwardly and fixing a club and winning more games and becoming a successful organisation, which they haven't been. I'm not outraged by the whole thing. I'm actually quite enjoying it. But it's... it's been a big story the last couple of days. And the comparison between Hawthorn and North Melbourne certainly isn't lost on me. The way Hawthorn dealt with it early last year and how North are dealing with it now.
Yeah, well, there's something to be said about that. And I'm just going to do a little segment here on North Melbourne because...
Excellent.
Yeah,
they deserve it, North. I like North. I like Jen Watt. I like Sonia Hood.
Yeah.
I've got along well with Clarko. I think Todd Viney's a good footy boss.
Yeah.
I think their players are good fella. But they just need to start winning some games, don't they?
For sure.
They haven't won more than 4 games in a season since 2019. Like
Yeah.
that's a long time of.
Trust me, I am well aware.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
I'll put I can't find the logo now, but I'll put it
That's
up
okay,
on the post-production thing. So, look, I get it. We're bad. There's no doubt about that. What I find frustrating about the club, right, is that they've made all these changes. They brought in Jeff Walsh. I think they did a review.
Yeah.
They've got they've moved out, Boomer and John Blakey and changed the systems and that kind of thing. Identified what they believe is the issue. And fair enough, most football clubs like to keep things internal, like it's within the four walls. I think there comes a point in time after like a decade where they kind of owe it to the fans and the members to explain what they haven't, as far as I know. I don't know, have you seen any of the what was in this Jeff Walsh review back,
A few years ago.
It was like
No, I can't
3-4 years ago.
Off the top of my head.
As to my knowledge, AFL supporters have no idea what was in that. And
So be more transparent is what you're saying.
yeah, just like what did we find? You don't have to do it right, because I can understand if you say right now, like, oh, look, our recruiting's bad, then everyone goes, they know who it is, and then they could criticize them. But if you go 3-4 years ago, we had some issues here, some of the coaching, and no one really remembers that much. This is what we changed. And then now all of a sudden, there's not this blurred line between the last 10 years and now. You kind of go, we've had 8 years of crap, and now we've made some changes so it's frustrating that the club is going about it the way they have, just keeping things so internal. It's just going to make the supporters think there's no end in sight.
Yeah, I know. And I think it's probably easy to think there's no end in sight if you continually lose games. Like Good Friday was a disaster for North Melbourne. You got the eyes of the footy world on you. And Carlton who was struggling, polling 140, what have they kicked against you guys that day?
And to me, just explain, just say, we have been working on this, but unfortunately, we only sort of figured it out once Alistair Clarkson came in. So we know we haven't won much in the last 5-6 years, but in the last 3 years, we made these changes when he came in. Yeah, that's true. It took a while, I think
Clarko's arrival sort of the start.
Well, we hope. I don't know, because they've never announced, they've never told us.
As difficult as that is for North Melbourne supporters, because Reece Shaw and David Noble didn't work. But it's like St Kilda. It's like St Kilda haven't won a grand final since 1966.
Yep.
So how much do you want the club to explain why that's happened over the journey? Or do you just deal with this era that we're in now since Ross Lyons started? And this is the thing, it does cross over. I think North will end up being okay, but it's a long way to go from 16th, 17th to the top. Like Collingwood finished 17th in 2021, made a prelim in 2022, won a grand final in 23. It's
possible.
Like Melbourne finished 17th in 2019, 9th in 2020, premiership in 2021. So teams do jump up. So why can't it be North? Like there has to be something deep in the DNA why it's not them, and I'm not sure what that is. If I knew what that was, I'd write an article, but I don't.
Take the coaching role. All right, but I have to say, us being bad and everything, there seems to be there's a lot of journos that feel stacks on. So Kane Cornes is one. Yes. Caroline Wilson is well known to be by North Melbourne fans an enemy. Yeah. Damien Barrett, who's supposed to be a supporter.
Well, that's what I got copped for Melbourne. Like you're supposed to be a reporter.
I think he would openly admit that he's. Well, I'm not sure. He seems to be.
See, I don't agree with Damo on North Melbourne. He's very harsh on North Melbourne. Very harsh,
yeah.
But that's his opinion. So
I would say Sam McClure is not a big fan, and I feel like Eddie Maguire every second week's coming up with some new idea to ship it off to New Zealand or something like that. So,
well, Eddie doesn't like North Melbourne. Sorry, I'll rephrase it. Eddie doesn't like elements of North Melbourne because he believes that the big clubs should be allowed to be big, whereas the soft cap.
I can tell it's coming through.
It's quite a level playing field. So North Melbourne want to keep the soft cap low so they can pay all their coaches. If the soft cap goes up by $4 million, Collingwood will pay that, and North won't be able to afford it. So there'll be a bigger gap. So that's where Eddie's frustration comes from about North.
So there's not some pact or initiation that if you get into the media, you have to hate on North Melbourne.
No, there's not. not at all.
All right.
And I bet you I'll do a story at some point. You go, oh, geez, Tom must hate North Melbourne. I can promise you now, I don't hate North Melbourne, no matter what story.
And your colleagues don't either, in your opinion.
No.
Okay.
I think we all, just like you, we just don't rate them.
All right.
It's like the footy club hasn't won enough games, and so you can't argue with that. But no, there's no pact to
bring us down.
Bring you down. No, there's not.
All right, and just to finish up, I haven't heard a lot about this Taron Thomas story held at gunpoint. Is there any rhetoric there? It sounds a little bit.
So my colleague Isabel Quinlan broke that story on Sunday night on the news, and I don't have much to add to that only because she did the story, but. Geez, it's pretty concerning that he was held at gunpoint, allegedly kidnapped overnight. And I've heard nothing more from it. All I know is that he can't find a footy club to play for at the moment. And I'd be shocked if he ever played AFL again.
Well, I've come across him a few times when I was filming at events and that kind of thing back when he was playing for North. And something I think that it's underestimated the talent that was lost there because he was an absolute gun.
He was, yep.
And I've met a lot of AFL players out and about at bars, clubs, that kind of thing. They usually don't want to talk about AFL. They don't want to think about it. Too cool for school. Yeah. To me, Taron was like the complete opposite.
Yeah, interesting.
He was like, you were a North supporter. Yeah, he was telling me like, we're doing these things at training. He had some footage of like, here's me and Jaiza like going hard for a ball. And it was like great as a North Melbourne supporter because when I meet players, I never even bring up, even if I'm a fan.
Just quickly, like that's the issue. Like you lose Taron Thomas for the reasons we know. You lose Jason Horne-Francis. If he was invested at the club, imagine him there now. Reece Shaw, for mental health reasons, doesn't coach anymore at North Melbourne. So things have conspired against you. You can say it's poor management or it's just unlucky. Either way, things have worked against you.
There's about 10 more things as well with the recruiting and the draft, like the weird things, father-son things. I think Dacos could have been picked up by North.
Nick Blakey is another one.
Yeah, Blake. Actually, he's another one. Early in his career, actually when he just got drafted, I saw him out at a club or something. And he told me, he's like, look, dude, on the low down, like I'm going to one day end up at North. So there's a breaking story.
Oh, there we go. Well, he signed until about 2032 or something. So that's a fair way away.
I know. That's why. Otherwise, I'd keep it a big secret. But I think once he signed on, I'm like, he lied to me.
Yeah, well, I think living up in Sydney is probably slightly better than living down in cold Melbourne. Anyway.
That's true. All right.
You're a proper North fan. I respect that. Well done.
I had to fly the flag.
Yeah. It's good.
You sort of did it for Kane too. So in a way, colleagues, that kind of thing.
We're allowed to have differences of opinion. That's all good.
Well, anyway, I appreciate it so much coming on. It's been a great chat. Super appreciate your time. That's about a wrap from me, man. Unless you got anything to plug or anything coming up.
Nothing to plug. Thanks for having me in. You're doing a great job.